Hey guys! It's Wednesday, it's 6 p.m, so it's time for a deep dive on something. And today it's all about protein, my favourite thing to talk about. Look, I've got quite a lot of notes, so buckle up. I don't think I'm going to talk too long. I'm basically just going to tell you all the benefits of protein, how much you should be eating, where you can get it from, some things to watch out for with it, and yeah, that's about it really. I said that's about it. It's quite a lot. Again, as last week, if you've got any questions, just pop them in the comments box. They'll flash up and then I can answer any questions as we go. So protein. The first thing is, as I said last week on the macros chat, protein is really vital for the body. It does loads of jobs. It plays a really important role in the body. It builds muscle, it builds skeletal and connective tissues, it builds like chemical messengers to send like messages around the body. It helps to build chemicals that support the immune system. It transports loads of different nutrients around the body. So all those nice, lovely vitamins and minerals we're getting from our fruits and veg, we wouldn't be able to use those as effectively if we didn't have the protein to back it up. And also, it's really important in supporting the immune system as well. So loads of jobs for protein or proteins, because there's loads of different types. But we're not going to get too in depth. Don't worry, no crazy science here today. So I said about that job, it builds muscle. That's really important because, as I mentioned before, muscle is an active tissue. So it costs a lot of calories to just keep alive, like just to keep it in the body. So, if your goal is weight loss, then it's, having extra muscle is like free interest almost. It's burning those calories without even doing anything. But also it helps us with movement. As we get older, we start to lose muscle, and that's why we then start to struggle with movements. We can't get up and down the stairs as easily, etc., etc. I mean, in combination with other things, but that's one of the reasons. So if we can keep that muscle tissue around, that's a bonus. That's good news for us. So it looks like protein plays a really important role in the body. It does loads of different jobs. But didn't I say before that carbs and fat also do that? They do. So why do I go on about protein specifically so much? We're going to get into that. That's the purpose of today's dive. So the first thing is that protein's really satiating. So it keeps you feeling full if you've eaten it. And fat does this too. Fat keeps you feeling really full once you've eaten it, but protein is cheaper, if you like. That's a good way to put it. It comes at the cost of only 4 calories per gram of protein, whereas fat comes at the cost of 9 calories per gram of protein. So both of them are going to keep you full, but you're getting more than double the calories if you're eating fat, whereas protein, it's much cheaper and it keeps you just as full. So makes sense to go down the protein route. Aside from that, we're not talking literally just the calories. There's also this other bonus, and that is that protein is the body's preferred energy source. So it's kind of like a savings account. The body likes to keep hold of protein. It doesn't like to burn it. So when I say it's the preferred energy source, I don't mean that it's the preferred energy source to use. It's like, oh, I love this one, let me keep it safe. Like a savings account. So all the time you're eating protein, the body's like, right, store that away, keep that safe somewhere because it's so important. Whereas like carbs and fat, the body's like, yeah, burn that up. I've got loads of that going. I've got sugar in my bloodstream. I've got glycogen stored in my muscles. I've got fat stores, I can burn that through. Whereas it actually takes a lot of energy for the body to burn protein and use it as energy. So it doesn't want to do that because it's costing it extra to get that energy. So it doesn't make any sense for it. So if you're getting protein in, then the body's going to save that and then use all the other foods, all the other energies that you've got coming in from carbs, from fat. It's going to use those first. All those carbs that you're eating with the protein is going to burn that first, and then it will burn fat stores. If it absolutely has to, it will go to protein, but it really doesn't want to do that. So that's another reason why protein's really great. It's cheap at 4 calories per gram, and also the body likes to just save it away somewhere and not use it up and use the other things instead. So it's almost like kind of encouraging fat burning because it wants to save the protein and then burn the fat stores instead. However, a calorie is a calorie. So I don't want you to take from this, go, oh, well, you know, protein, the body doesn't like to burn it, so I'll just eat whatever I want. I could eat 3,000 calories a day of chicken. I mean, you know, good luck to you if you want to do that. But, you know, a calorie is still a calorie, and 3,000 calories, if that's still more than you are burning, you are still going to put on weight. So don't think of it as like a free pass. Anyway, that's very unlikely for most people. Most people are actually not eating enough protein. So the recommended daily allowance, as you know, prescribed by like the government, the top people, is about 70 grams. And most people probably are eating that. But that's like a survival amount of protein. That's just how much you need to survive. And it isn't an amount you need to thrive. And that's very different. You know, and enough is not necessarily optimal. So they're saying about 70, 75-ish grams of protein per day. For me, I like to recommend about 0.7 to 1 gram, so somewhere in that range. You know, it's personal preference, but between 0.7 and 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight. So if you're 150 pounds, if that's how much you weigh, then you're going to want to eat somewhere around about 130 to 150 grams of protein a day. Now that might seem like quite a lot, because if you're only used to eating like 70 grams, which is what the government prescribes, that's double. So that's quite a big difference, isn't it? But as we mentioned earlier, there are so many processes in the body that need protein, and it can contribute to so many other health factors that actually having a little bit of extra is well worth it. So we've said that if you're 150 pounds, this is the number I'm going to stick with, we're going to have 150 grams of protein. How are you going to get that? The first thing I want to start off with is saying that 20 grams of chicken is not the same as 20 grams of protein. So if you get a 150 gram chicken breast, you can't call that done. That's not it. Because the chicken breast comes with other things. It's got other nutrients in there, it's got water, it has got, you know, some carbs and fat in there, very minor, but some. So actually, to get 20 grams of protein from chicken, you're going to need about 100 grams of chicken. I hope that makes sense. That protein is not equal to protein source. All right, so how are you going to measure these then? If you're going to go down the exact route of, right, I need 150 grams, I need to measure this, I need to track it in like MyFitnessPal or whatever else other apps you're using, you are going to have to do some research. So you're going to have to look up every meat source, or, you know, use an app that will tell you. Usually MyFitnessPal, if you just type in chicken, it will tell you how much protein there is. Or if you're doing it just on old-fashioned pen and paper, I don't really know who's doing that, but somebody might, then you're going to have to Google everything, because it's all got different protein amounts per source. The other way you can do it is just the really simple, and I have mentioned this before, palm method. So for this, I recommend about 1 palm size piece of protein for every 10 kilos of body weight. I know I've switched between pounds and kilos. Call me futuristic, I'm sorry. So yeah, if you're a 70 kilo person, you're going to need about 7 palms of protein sources. So that is literally a piece of chicken that is about that size. 7 of those, or, you know, about that much of Greek yogurt or whatever it is. We'll come to protein sources a little bit later. But yeah, just to be aware of that, that's obviously a much easier method. But if you want to fine tune it and get exact, then you're going to have to do a little bit of research, because every protein source has a different amount of protein in it, and the weight is not equal to the protein. Okay, so we'll come back to some sources in a minute at the end, but I've just said that the RDA, the recommended daily allowance, is about half of what is actually optimal to thrive. And really the question then comes, well, can you have too much protein? Because you've just said, you know, it's got all these health benefits, it's pretty cheap at 4 calories a gram, you know, it promotes fat burning, so can you have too much? Can't I just eat loads of protein? The first thing I'd say is, there is an issue if you're going to suddenly increase by a lot. So if you're going to suddenly double your protein intake, you might run into some digestive issues. Not that you're not going to absorb the protein well, but just because your body's not used to processing that much protein, sometimes you can get a bit of a dicky tummy. So just increase it gradually. So if you're going from like an average of like 70 grams per day, maybe up it to like 90, 100, 120, and then up to 150. Just add a little bit every day, or every few days, you know, see how you're settling with it. If it's a bit, you know, a bit gurgly, just hold on and then increase it a little bit later. So just be steady with it. Aside from that though, science actually hasn't found an upper limit. So that's really interesting. They did a study across a span of 2 years. And for those 2 years, the participants ate 2 grams of protein per pound of body weight. So if they're 150 pounds, they were eating 300 grams of protein every day. Now that's quite a lot. 2 grams, so that's double what I've just recommended, which is 4 times the RDA. And those people didn't suffer from any ill effects, nothing. There's been a lot of rumours of protein increases being like a struggle on the kidneys and the liver and things. They didn't find that, no ill effects from that. Blood work was all good, blood pressure was great, they were healthy. Some of them gained a little bit of weight because they gained muscle, but nobody gained any extra body fat. So even though they had all increased their calories, because they didn't control the other factors, they didn't say, right, you're going to eat 2 grams of protein per pound and we're going to reduce carbs and fat. They didn't monitor that. They just literally changed the protein. So, you know, those other things might have equaled themselves out, and that's kind of what we want, really. But nobody gained any extra body fat from eating that extra protein. So that's what I was saying about the body wanting to just store that away and keep that energy and then burn all the other stuff. So that, to me, was very, very interesting. But the question to me really comes, can you eat that much? So it's not, is it possible that protein can have ill effects on the body if you eat too much? Can you eat too much? Can you physically do it? Because if we're talking about 300 grams of protein for a 150-pound person, that's 1.5 kilos of chicken a day. I mean, obviously you could switch up your sources, but just imagine 1.5 kilos of chicken every day. I couldn't eat that. It's too much. So it's very unlikely that you're going to eat too much protein, is really what I'm saying. You'd have to try very, very hard. The Rock, his diet is absolutely no joke. He eats like 7 steaks or something mad. Probably more than that. Yeah, and that's a full-time job. So I think you're going to be fine. If you are looking to increase your protein then, so you've listened to all of these and you've thought, oh my God, those people ate double the amount and they didn't gain any weight, didn't gain any body fat, and it's got all these benefits. Yep, I'm going to eat some more protein. The thing I'm going to say is try and eat it regularly throughout the day. So what you don't want to do is go, right, it's dinner time, I'm going to eat 3 steaks now. Because actually the body isn't great at storing it. It can't store a lot. So I know I said the body wants to keep it all and not burn it up, but it doesn't really convert it into fat so well. And it doesn't store protein anywhere. So you have to keep eating it regularly so that once the body's used it for all those processes we talked about earlier, all the transporting stuff, all the building things, then you need another intake of it. It's like getting a monthly wage, you know, once you've spent your money on the first day, it's gone. So you need to keep getting it in and in and in. So you need to eat it regularly throughout the day. And that is why I usually promote to people to eat a high protein breakfast, because you're setting yourself up for the day. Like I said, it's satiating, all those other benefits, but also you're starting that cycle of like drip feeding the protein in. Okay, so you're going to do it. You're going to increase your protein intake. You're going to eat it regularly throughout the day. So where are you going to get it from? I talked earlier about some protein sources. Obviously we know meat. Meat's the really easy, obvious one. Protein comes from meat. If you're going to start increasing your protein intake through meat, my one little bit of caution would be, don't just eat 50 rashers of bacon. Because meat can come with extra fat. Now, animal fat in and of itself, not a problem. Most people actually are not eating enough animal fat and we're missing out on the micronutrients from that, but that's a whole nother topic for another time. So you can eat some animal fat, but you don't want to make every protein source really fatty, because that just packs in the extra calories, and you likely, if you're just focusing on your protein, aren't then going to be reducing fat elsewhere. So just be mindful of that. Have some lean protein sources in there as well. So things like chicken, turkey, lean mince, pork. You can trim the fat off, or you can eat it like one or two bits of fatty meat, fine. Greek yogurt I go on about a lot, or Icelandic style yogurt, that's really high protein. Fish, tofu, tempeh, edamame, like soy chunks. Okay, I would try and get some other sources in there as well. They're not like a top protein source, but I understand, if you're vegetarian or vegan, options are limited for protein, so you've got to get it where you can. But the closer that you can get to a whole food, the closer you can get to something that looks like it lived or breathed at some point, then the better, really. So, building on that, there's been this whole thing lately about protein, and everyone's been jumping on the bandwagon. So Kellogg's have made protein cereal, and you can get protein biscuits. Belvita have got protein biscuits, or you can get protein cookies. Well, are they a protein source? When we actually look on at the numbers on the back, when we look at all the all the dietary information, actually, is the protein that high? Or is it just that they sprinkled a little bit of protein powder on it, and actually it's still 20 grams of carbs and 8 grams of fat, and it's got 6 or 7 grams of protein? Is that really a protein source? Probably not. So we just need to be mindful about, well done for spotting out and realising, okay, I need to increase my protein, so, get it in where I can. But, don't be tricking yourself in thinking, I ate these 3 biscuits earlier, I must have loads of protein, because no, actually they're still just carb sources with the added bonus of some protein. They're not a protein source. So like I said, the closer you can get to a whole food that was living or breathing at some point, the better off you are. So yeah, that's all my summary on protein, really. As I mentioned last week, this really is the place to start. If you're going to start sort of monitoring any of your food, protein would be the place. As I said earlier with that study, the people that doubled their protein intake and maybe even quadrupled it, I'm not sure where they came from, what their eating background was before that, they didn't put any extra body fat on, and I said that maybe they had levelled out their carbs and fat. They just sort of managed themselves because they weren't that hungry, because protein was keeping them full. So this really is the place to start, and then you can tweak the others to match your goal. So start with the protein, get your 7 palms in, get your 100 grams, whatever it is that you need for your body, and then just tweak the carbs and fat. They can equal whatever percentage you want, it doesn't really matter. But just tweak it to your goal. So if your goal is to pack on the pounds because you're starting a new weightlifting program, you can just see how your weight's going. And if you're losing or maintaining, just add an extra cup of carbs in. Or if you're looking to lose weight but you're gaining, then you can just take a little bit of carb and fat out. But the protein really stays consistent unless you're massively changing your activity. So you've just started a new exercise regime. Or you're getting really into weightlifting, or you've stopped doing those, or if your body weight changes significantly, then you might need to reassess the protein intake. But otherwise, that's going to stay pretty consistent. Get that in first, and then the other stuff will level itself out, and if it doesn't, just make little tweaks. So yeah, that's everything on protein. Hit me up with any questions if I've given you any and I haven't answered them thoroughly. But I hope now you understand why I go on about it so much, because it's kind of like a wonder food, as long as we use it in the right way. So thanks for watching.